what's happening, everyone? It is I, the man, the myth, the mustache, Tim here, and I got a brand new video for you. Welcome to part 5 of What If Deku Had a Slime Quirk. This is actually a pretty good episode, so sit back and relax because you are in for a treat. So, with that out of the way, let's get on with the story, shall we? A multitude of dark portals filled the arena, with dozens upon dozens of dangerous villains flooding into the open space. Midoriya moved back and hid behind his teacher. This was no test. It was an invasion. Both 13 and Aizawa stepped forward, ready to defend their students. Everyone, make your way to the exit and alert UA. 13, go protect the kids. I'll hold them off until backup arrives. The students protested, not wanting to leave the pros to handle the villains alone, but they were met by stern glares. A few of the students did as they were told and began stepping back towards the large doors. As they turned to run, another portal appeared, blocking the exit. "No way in hell am I leaving all the fun to you!" screamed Bakugo as he rocketed towards the main group of villains, his explosions propelling him through the air. Joining the Atomic Blonde was Kirishima, who used his hardening quirk on his arms. But just as the two approached the shadowy figure and the man with hands surrounding his body, another black portal appeared. My, are you children in this much of a rush to die?" said the well-dressed shadow villain, his arms firmly behind his back, unmoving at the approaching students. The spectral mists began to engulf the students, their surroundings now shrouded in darkness. All the while, the multitude of villains continued their steps towards the heroes. "According to the curriculum we procured yesterday, All Might was supposed to be with this group. A pity." This caused the man with hands to twitch uncontrollably and scratch at his neck anxiously. His eyes focused as he looked toward the surrounded students and teachers. As he balled up his fist, the gray-haired man growled in anger. "This is disappointing. I bet if we kill those brats, that bastard will show." The venom in his voice caused fear to be instilled into some of the members of UA, especially Mineta, who shook timidly. His eyes watered up as he ran to Midoriya's side and grabbed his leg. The shocked slime quirk user broke his concentration on the villains as he felt his leg being gripped. Take it easy, Mineta. I'm sure All Might will show up. Eventually," commented the green net, who gulped hard, while the shadows began to close in. Using the banter between the villains as an opportunity to strike, Aizawa jumped into action with his goggles covering his eyes, and his hair standing on end. His capture scarf launched like a whip towards one of the villains and grabbed a hold of their arm. The villain attempted to trigger his quirk, but it was to no avail, for it had been nullified. The villain's eyes opened wide as he was yanked upwards aggressively. A heel crashed into his mouth and dislodged several teeth, spraying blood upon impact. Jumping away from the villain, the black-haired man centered himself as the crowd of villains surrounded him. His body was now crouched in a combat-ready stance, and the villains noticed that their quirks were not working. In frustration, they began jumping into battle, but were easily dispatched by the pro. Meanwhile, the shadow villain stepped forward and vanished into a portal before appearing near 13 and the students. The teens were getting antsy, knowing that their escape plan had been foiled, and a powerful villain was now challenging them. "We are the League of Villains, and our goal is to snuff out the symbol of peace, All Might." The air grew cold as the man's words frightened the teens. As the shadows surrounded them, Bakugo and Kirishima launched into action. Bakugo's hands were primed for explosions, while Kirishima's fists were hardened and ready to deal heavy blows. But their actions were for naught, as their strikes went right through the villain. The dust settled, and the man was not harmed. But before the two could act once more, they and most of their classmates were consumed by the darkness. The teens vanished into the purple-black smoke portals, leaving only some of the students of UA to face the villain. With his vision shrouded in darkness, Midoriya couldn't help but panic as his senses were drowned in nothing but shadows. Soon, the feeling of falling quickly overwhelmed him as he was spat out from the black portal over a man-made lake. His eyes widened and bulged out comically as he could see several villains already in the water awaiting their prey. Thinking quickly, he transformed his body into slime and quickly condensed into a sphere, which caused him to sink into the water. His cyan coloring disguised him as his body made contact with the water. Just when Midoriya felt safe, from the dark waters, a shark-like man struck at him and attempted to consume him. Due to the sudden environmental change, the boy's mind went blank as the jagged toothed jaws of the villain approached. Before the assailant could chomp down on the slimy sphere, a mighty kick connected with the jaw of the man, sending him down into the depths. After the initial shock wore off, he noticed that his savior was the frog girl, Tsuyu Asui. Pointing upwards, the green-suited girl rapidly made her way up and out of the water, while Midoriya followed closely behind. Hopping out of the water, the amphibious girl landed onto a ship in the center of the man-made lake. Just as his head poked out of the water, Midoriya found a flailing and nearly drowning Mineta, surrounded by villains. This video is sponsored by Skillshare. With the services Skillshare provides, you can get access to many in-depth tutorial videos on basically anything you want to learn. Each class that they have is bound to help you with your creative endeavors. Do you want to learn how to make videos like this one? Do you want to learn how to write scripts or edit audio? Skillshare has you covered. And with our link, you can have a 14-day free trial. So what are you waiting for? Click the link now and get 14 days worth of classes free. Link in the description below. "I'm coming, buddy!" shouted the slime sphere as he began to spin in place, displacing the water around him before shooting towards his friend's location. Gliding over the surface of the water, the slime boy crashed into the face of one of the attackers, ricocheted onto another, then another, successfully hitting them all square in the face. The speed of the strike caused the usually soft slime to impact the villains with similar force to a soccer ball being kicked by a pro athlete. Using the distraction, Asui launched her tongue out to grab the purple dwarf, rescuing him from danger. After bouncing off a final villain's face, Midoriya used the momentum to throw himself upwards and joined his classmates on the ship. After falling into Asui's arms, Midoriya formed a thumbs up in his slime sphere form. "Nice catch," complimented the greenette, until he noticed how close he was to the girl's body, which quickly caused his sphere form to destabilize and melt right through her fingers before puddling on the ground. In response, the dark-haired girl tilted her head in confusion and scratched her cheek as Midoriya attempted to reconstitute his human form. "Sorry," gurgled the slime boy as his body recovered. His cheeks were redder than a tomato. All the while, Mineta shot daggers of jealousy at the closeness the two shared in the moment. "Well, if you two are done being weird, what are we gonna do, Ribbit?" asked the frog girl as she peered over the edge, looking down at the villains that observed carefully, who were waiting to strike. It seemed they were waiting for something, but what could it be? The freckled boy joined his companions and attempted to make sense of the situation. The boy began to mumble to himself, his classmates' voices being drowned out by his incisive muttering. "Midoriya. Hey, Midoriya!" The voice of the frog girl remained muted to the muttering teen, until a glob of slime hit him on the side of the head. The viscous, translucent ooze ran down the side of his face, as Midoriya blinked multiple times, having been forcefully taken out of his trance. After a few seconds, the freckled youth began to laugh and wiped the slime off before smiling at Asui. "Sorry about that, even though it's scary," Midoriya said, his gaze going back to the villains in the water, as well as the multitude of villains at the entrance area. "We need to fight, but first, we gotta take care of these guys." The juniper-haired boy punched his palm and furrowed his brows. A firm, determined gaze appeared on his face. "I got a plan!" The trio huddled together for a few minutes as the emerald-eyed teen began to inform everyone of his strategy. Mineta gave his friend a nervous thumbs up as sweat trickled down his face, while Asui did the same. Jumping onto the ledge of the boat, Midoriya turned around, giving his back to the water. "Good luck!" waved the boy as he fell backwards into the water, before shifting into slime halfway down. Once in the water, the slime teen began to spin in place and displace the water around him. As the villains noticed that the teen who had previously struck them had returned to their domain, they began rushing towards his location. As the villains homed in on his location, Midoriya rocketed towards one of the villains, bounced off the evildoer's head and into the air. As the slime boy reached a high altitude, Asui's tongue stretched out and wrapped around the slime sphere, throwing him back down with full momentum and hitting another villain in the face. This action continued until most of the villains were either hurt or unconscious. When he was back in the air, Midoriya was caught by Asui, who pulled him and Mineta over the water and away from danger. While escaping the water zone, Mineta launched a barrage of his sticky balls, which attached to the villains, keeping them both afloat and stuck together. Elsewhere, Shoto Todoroki and Toru Hagakure were back-to-back, surrounded by villains. The bi-colored teen held his stoic expression as his arm frosted over, ready to fight the onslaught of villains. The invisible girl held her gloved hands up, showing she was in a combat stance. Fists ready to fight. "Stay out of the way. I'll handle these lackeys." The girl looked back, only to see a massive wall of ice encapsulate the villains in the area. Suddenly, from below, a villain emerged from the ground, causing the earth to displace from beneath Todoroki. Unable to avoid the attack fully, the boy in white braced for impact by lifting an ice barrier to defend himself. At that moment, Hagakure's silhouette began to shine. A bright light radiated throughout her body, and tendrils of electricity sparked throughout. Due to the sudden nature of the surprise attack, Hagakure could not jump in to intercept, but there was an ace up her sleeve. Outstretching her hands, she shut her eyes before she announced her attack. "Light refraction!" As an intense wave of light shot through the area, the electricity around the girl crackled as the blast of light shined around them, widening and reflecting off the ice, and causing a remarkable light show. The unprepared villain caught the bulk of the rays of light as his pupils shrank. His eyes made an attempt to shut as his retinas burned from the intense rays. Todoroki's eyes were half closed during the blast, but the light show was so intense that his vision was suddenly snuffed out. A great deal of the USJ was illuminated suddenly, which caught the attention of everyone. After a second had passed, the attacking villain wretched on the ground, his hands gripping his face, as tears of blood ran down his face. Falling back, Todoroki had his palm on his face, his eyes red from the exposure. The light silhouette then began to dissipate, and all that remained were Hagakure's gloves and boots. She ran over to Todoroki and kneeled by his side. "Oh my gosh, Todoroki, I'm so sorry. Are you okay?" The voice of the girl was erratic as she placed her hand on the boy's shoulder, though his serious expression was not replaced with one of pain. I can't see," mumbled the teen as he lowered his palm, showing his reddened eyes with blank white pupils. While the teens attempted to recover themselves from the sudden show of power, Aizawa continued his fight against the invading villains. The consistent use of his quirk was straining his eyesight, which caused gaps to appear in his defense. Every now and then, a villain managed to land a hit. Taking advantage of a lapse between erasures, the man covered in hands decided to enter the battle. A group of villains began assaulting the teacher. Moving swiftly through the attacks, Aizawa managed to defend himself, but he had miscalculated. Suddenly, an intense, bone-chilling pain sparked from his elbow, looking back only to meet the dastardly eyes of the hand-decorated villain. Ignoring the pain, the crimson eyes of the stealth hero nullified the decay quirk. Then, following the erasure, A quick fist knocked the man with dried skin back, sending him to the ground. 2 more villains attempted to strike Aizawa, but failed to do anything of note. Suddenly, a powerful figure cast a shadow over Aizawa. And that's our video for the day, so thank you all for watching. Told you it'd be a good one, so I hope you enjoyed it. Anyway, before I go, a little bit of housekeeping. First, We the Celestials has many other channels for your entertainment and viewing pleasures. All the information you'll need is right below in the description, so please, feel free to check out all the other incredible content our team creates. Second, on behalf of We the Celestials, I want to thank everyone who worked on the production of today's awesome content. Their details are also in the description below, so send them some love. And that's it for today's video, so thank you all for watching, and please, have an amazing day. And as always, before I go, be kind to yourselves, be kind to others, and stay awesome! This has been Tim, Mustache out.